Emotions Matter, brought to you by Emaww.com. That's EMAWW.com, your solution for emotional intelligence. Welcome to the Emotions Matter podcast. My guest is Dr. Michael Sue, who's been delivering quality care for his patients for over 30 years. Dr. Sue is passionate about public medical education and practices a holistic approach to patient care, focusing on prevention and life balance for better health. With all that being said, let's jump right in. Welcome, Dr. Sue. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, in your 30 years of private practice, I noted some pretty significant accomplishments, not the least of which being voted one of the best doctors in America by your peers in 2000. Give our audience some highlights of your background, some of your achievements, and some of the more significant events you might want to share with our audience.
I'll be happy to. My background spans through not only time but also geographic in nature because having been born in Hong Kong, raised in England, I traveled many continents, not only the Far East but also in northern Canada as well as the United States. So my exposure has been multicultural and at the same time, coming from a family of four doctors among seven of us, I'm sort of very much inundated into the medical world, so which directed my career into medicine.
Well, all right. Thank you so much for those insights. Now let's jump into a topic you've spoken about on television, at professional lectures, and in your Doctoring You segments. That being balance and the importance between mental and physical. So, first, if you could please give us your perspective of healthy balance and how it might affect an individual's emotions.
This is a great topic to talk about because when one thinks about balance, we have the medical direction as well as the personal, emotional interpretation. So, what I like to do as a physician is to incorporate the two, and because to me they are inseparable. You can imagine somebody who's under stress, which from the day we're born, we're under stress because of change of environment from the womb to a cold delivery room. And then the time will tell what we, as far as human experience, not only through our family and our environmental issues that pops up from time to time, is to how we individually adapt to every situation. Physically speaking, no matter what, we grow. And it's like a tree that once you plant in the soil, it will grow in time. But we are affected in many ways by environment, like weather, the nutrients around the tree. So, as an animal ourselves, we are affected in many ways by those next to us, and as far as environmental and stress issues. So when I talk about emotion, having a balanced emotion, it is in many ways it is our mindset, and our mindset really reflects to you can go down to the molecular level as far as what our chemistry is from moment to moment in our life. We can be happy, we can be sad, we can be in love, we can fall out of love. Tragedies, tragedy comes into our lives, whether it's tsunami or any other events that is not controllable within our mind frame. And physically, we have to adapt, whether it's the morning shift, swing shift, or a physical injury like a motor vehicle accident. So having that to basically tackle from day to day, which is unpredictable, to have that balance is so significant. I think to have us to be tuned in to be even keel. The two has to meet and to be as equal, if not in a high state of alert. So the individual emotion is very important to me.
Terrific. Thank you. So, you treat many patients who've immigrated to the United States and really may be experiencing fear as a part of their transition. Walk us a little bit through your experiences when dealing with patients exhibiting fear or possibly even grief in their daily emotions.
This is a very important question because immigration is a big part of our world activity, especially now in the Middle East. There's so many people going from one country to another, and there's really it's a form of human suffering for those who are really unfortunate. And in the United States, we're fortunate enough that we have immigrants that come from different nations. In many ways, are pre-selected, and whether they are individually wealthy or those who are previously screened in many ways, especially now that we worry about things like terrorists and things of that nature. You can imagine the fear part of this. Not only is it to the patient, him or herself, whether you're adult or as a minor, but it also to the people that they newcomers that live next door to you. So even as the nation, there is this fear part in many ways that is a threat, is a doubt on everybody's mind as to who these people are, and that people we don't know, and we don't know where they come from, what they know, what they don't know. Are they similar to us? Will there be phobias to people around them? I think these are very important issues. I think the fear part alone is cannot be underscored. So looking through years past, as far as me moving around the continents, uh, I can tell you firsthand that it's important as a young lad to be able to go from one place to a place that with different languages and to be able to find yourself whether you can immerse with a new environment with a new identity. I think that's very important because that strikes fear, because fear itself is not only internal that you have to deal with from day to day, but it is also what you feel from others' reaction towards you. And that can change from moment to moment. So you can imagine nowadays with the terrorist threat, you see certain uh, other ethnical people walking on a street. You may have a certain sense of fear or believes that you were previously indoctrinated, and this comes naturally to every person. And of course, dealing with patients with these issues, they are very much individualized because they have different backgrounds and upbringing. And I think it's very important to understand where they come from, what they have been doing, what their own family lives is all about in the past, and what is the future is in store for them. So possibly when you look at grief, grief is also an issue that uh, is distinguished from sadness. That it has uh, that's no hope feeling, and the fact is that if a person passes on, a loved one, for instance, that in many ways you know they're not coming back. So that can be grief. It's a natural thing, but when you have grief that's prolonged, then it becomes something pathological, which is needs to be treated. So I think when you look at these two factors alone, you can imagine what an immigrant can feel from day to day, from year to years, and and I think for all of us to understand that will help them a great deal.
So let me ask you something. When you witness patients who've truly achieved in your mind balance, Do you find that those patients exhibit a greater sense of awe in their life and relationships? What are the traits that you see when a patient you treated really exhibits true balance?
That's also a great question because to actually have somebody who can achieve that balance, that person has to be very calm and comfortable with him or herself. In many ways, it's like you have to be certain about your own self or be to know yourself well enough to do what is right for yourself. And it could be, you could be a teenager and don't know what you want to do until you're in your 20s, and then you have that state of mind that is kind of, you don't know what you want from day to day. You wake up, you're moody, and you get angry at people. So when you talk about a state of mind that is balanced, it is many ways depends on not only your age, but also what you see in life that you want to achieve that gives you the harmony that you want. So the balance between the body and mind is very important. Is that it's a method of discovering yourself as to who you are and who are you comfortable with, the people you live with, people you befriend with, and are you a complete person that you can be who you are among your friends. And the balance is oftentimes, as I mentioned before, that it can be affected internally as well as externally. Factors that's not under your control will be like world crisis, like a 9/11. That can create a lot of stress on people, not only on their personal lives because of loss of friends, etc., but also your job status could be changed. And so that balance in many ways is important. So when I see somebody who comes in and that they are balanced, it is in many ways, it's almost like seeing a perfect person who has in under control in all aspects uh, of their mind and body. And it is in many ways as a definition that one wished to accomplish, but it is always less than 100%. But on the other hand, the closer you are, the better you feel. So that sense of awe, in many ways, is like there is something that you don't feel very much. It's almost like you just got, like for a woman who first fall in love, or somebody, anyone who falls in love for the first time, you got that feeling of awe, or that feeling of, or somebody who won a raffle ticket for $20 million or whatever. That sense is something that don't come very often, and it is a sense of achievement that is out of this world. Uh, you know, so when you have that balance, people come in, they are more acceptable to whatever illness you deliver to them. Let's say good news or bad news, uh, they have the ability to sustain uh, the whatever outcome that is delivered to them, and that person is a lot more sure and confident in themselves because they know it is something that they can rationalize and live with, and they have the ability to combat it. So I think in their relationship is very important because all these uh, they really have to depend on their friends, their families. They are part of the solution to someone to achieve balance.
Do you find that there's a difference between older generations and younger generations in what composes balance in a person's life and what emotions of awe or other emotions that you see? Do you find that there's a large difference in generations?
Yes, definitely. Uh, People who have had a lot more experience in the elderly, for instance, just talk about senior as a group. I think depends on where they are brought up in the world, whether it's in Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia. I think uh, their background is going to be it basically direct them and formulate what their mindset is from the past to present. So their reaction in many ways is going to be different from us, if born and raised in America. So we have to understand the value. There is no good or bad as far as what a person feels, their state of mind, because that gives them the individual uh, mindset as far as outlook of who they are individually and what is their value of balance. So a person who are less goal oriented may be very balanced as far as they're concerned. If they have money, they have food in front of them, they have clothes to wear, and a place, a roof over their head. To them, is very balanced. Because if they were brought up in a state of chaos like World War II or conflict in their own country, coming to the U.S. As an immigrant could be a very balanced solution for them. However, uh, their sense of awe may be different because they would not be, having seen so many bad things in life. To them, it is awesome to be able to sit in a fine restaurant with a band playing in front of them, eating Mexican food. I mean, that could be awesome for them. For a young lad who is brought up here, could be awesome just having everyday hot dogs or hamburgers. And yet, for somebody who is uh, a young achiever who has reached the $1 million mark in their life, to be able to drive a sports car with a convertible, I think to them that could be awesome. So I think each to his own in many ways, and definitely age group has everything to do with it. So it depends on, uh, you can see yourself transform from a teenager to adulthood, young adulthood, and then later on in life, the all in many ways can be interpreted and changed accordingly.
So let's move on to another emotion that's near and dear to everyone's heart, and that would be love. What do you find most positively affects love when you're creating balance in one's life? If you have balance, what are those things that really affects the emotion of love from a balance perspective?
Love, in many ways, is um, is not just sex alone or something like that. It is an emotion that people feel, like a mother to a child, a sibling for each other, a love of a country. Uh, it is, in many ways, most people think of it as really um, an expression of endearment. And you have to understand the user and how he or she used the word, whether I love you, I love my country, I love this painting. They are very different. Or I love this restaurant. So in many ways, we have to use the context of what they feel. Now, so your question pertains to how to, when a person is in balance, what can it do positively when it comes to love? Of course, when somebody is in turmoil, their state of mind is in a state of flux in many ways, that they have things on their shoulder they cannot brush off. These are the monkeys on their back, and to them, for them to engage in, say, for instance, personal relationship with somebody else, it can be a burden because a new relationship means accommodating another person, uh, whether it's good for them or bad for them. Like, for instance, if somebody who has a substance abuse problem and they end up somewhere that they meet somebody who has who's an alcoholic, in many ways, uh, this would not be very good as far as affecting them and their love relationship. On the other hand, with somebody who is an extra achiever, let's say they are the head of the CIA and perfectly good background, and otherwise they wouldn't be selected to be there. And the wife stays at home and never see the husband or the wife because of their job. At the only at a glimpse at a time. That obviously is not a good relationship. So I wouldn't call that balance. So assuming all that is in the state, our state of mind is to be perfect. So you have a perfect lover, perfect husband or wife, partner, and uh, and that obviously can be something you can build on tremendously, because if that's that even keel as far as yin and yang in your life, and you complement each other, that's a very positive thing. So for that is a cultivated environment that can you can build on. I think it means a whole lot to a person's not only their own mental state of health, but also their physical development in the short and long term. So I think even longevity, in many ways, is a balanced life, to be with somebody you love, and you do things that you love to do.
Terrific. Thank you. So, we do have a question from one of our listeners. His name is Mark. He's 41 years old from Vancouver. And his question is, I'm currently caring for my mother that lives with me now after my father passed away. What is the best way to deal with the despair I have every day, realizing the focus of my life is now on caring for her and not advancing my career or personal relationships?
Now, this is unfortunately a very common scenario that occurs, I think, almost worldwide, because as the technology in medicine and science forward, as far as having more and more discoveries that prolongs people's lives, we're going to find our elderlies living longer, including ourselves and even as far as generations to come. So for Mark, at 41, most people would think of, well, where am I in my career? Who am I? Am I still living at home? Is my job steady? Am I with people I love? I think these are the things that is causing him to have second thoughts about what's the best way to deal with the situation when your mother or significant other um, is living alone or in medical needs of constant care. I think to each to his own in many ways is like, how do you find yourself? How do you come to terms with a condition that is, in a way, thrusted upon you uh, without any preparation? Like anything in life, I think situations will prop up. The only difficulty that we will have is to decide on our own as to how to tackle it. And there is no one solution that fits all. But if you are a person that you know your directions, like for instance, if you have one mother, you have only you, and no significant others around you, I think it's much easier to deal with because your direction is set. However, if you have families and you cannot move forward as a result of this because your time and money is needed to take care of an elderly, of course, that will give you the description of despair. Despair, in many ways, you can interpret as unfulfillment of your other dealings in life. Despair because of your time is inadequate to take care of your loved ones. Despair because you are feeling divided among your loyalty to your family and to your friends and yourself. So I think what one needs to do is to realize that life is limited. We are all going to die. The time we are born, we're going to die. Is to how you want to spend your time when we're in transition. So by looking at yourself as what have I achieved? If you have 10 points in life you want to as goals, uh, and you really have to itemize and say, okay, if I've done three things out of the 10, what is the least I want to do? And go forward selectively. And as long as you're moving forward, that you know you're achieving something and not at a standstill, I think the word despair to yourself, you may be able to soften a little bit from week to week or month to month. I think that's a very important thing. To move forward is to see yourself uh, taking steps towards your own goal and not be stationary. I think this gentleman may feel that way because his objectives in life has not been met. But if you got to move that a little bit at a time, whether it's slow motion or fast wind, I think you may find things to be a little bit more rewarding than to be at a standstill.
Very good. Thank you so much. So let's move on to something else. Let's talk about how you deal with some of your patients who might be unsatisfied or patients that have unrealistic expectations as to the speed of the results from your recommendations or care.
Patients are very diverse. I see them in a spectrum of, let's say, unsatisfied people. You can start from 0 to 10, 10 being the most unsatisfied. I think uh, we can all fall within that string of 0 to 10, but it can change from time to time. As we get older and more mature, we may find ourselves understand more as situations arise in our lives, and also the exposure to the human elements as well as things that we cannot control. Then we start to realize from our experience that how one cannot be totally satisfied with anything 100%. You can start from as simple as buying a candy bar or going to a restaurant or buying a gift for your friends and your family. I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect gift. I think it's all more of relative behavior as to how you see yourself uh, being fulfilled in what you wish. So, for a patient who comes in with uh, a problem or more, the thing is to be able to identify that problem and to be able to tell yourself, so, well, what do I want to have as outcome in each problem? And if the physician is able to, whether it's myself or others, to help you with that, is also the issue of time. Time is important in patients' illnesses. And for instance, Alzheimer can go on for years. And how are you going to be able to deal with that satisfactorily? I think is going to be a challenge because everybody can be exhausted from day one to 10 years from now. And if your loved ones do not expire from something else, they may have uh, things in life like a broken hip or something uh, bad that happens that can really trip you, uh, then they become sort of from satisfied to unsatisfied, and like vice versa. So people who comes in and say, well, okay, I want to have this done. I want to have this done now or yesterday. I think they need to rethink. And that's an educational point because everyone is different from their rate of understanding, their ability to understand what you say. Because the 5, 10, 15 minutes that with a doctor, once you walk out of that door, you might find yourself, well, I didn't ask 10 other questions and I don't understand what he or she said. So these happens a lot to patients. Now, so what you step out of the room, and once you say, well, guess what? I spoke to my friend next door, and guess what she or he told me is different from what my doctor said. Your impression will change, maybe from satisfied to not satisfied or some friends who is your running mate happens to be a doctor and mention, wow, didn't he or she do this? And you'll be unhappy. So I think in many ways, the mindset is very important. What you go in with, and if that answer, the one issue is taken care of, you should be happy with it. And there's always the ability to go back and ask again. If not, get a second opinion. So I think recommendation is always at the time off is only as valuable as the state of affair at the moment, at that moment, and because everything can happen in between.
Very good. Well, all right, let's move on to something that I know you're passionate about, and that would be your public medical education series. And you've launched something called doctoringyou.com. Give us a little flavor about Doctoring You and what you attempt to accomplish with your series.
Well, thank you for asking about doctoringyou.com. Currently is on YouTube, and I launched it just literally less than 2 months ago. Um, Even back in 2008, I used to do a lot of television interviews, and my pet project at the time was Health and You. And after about 80 recordings, I found that it's probably best to do this on my own when the topics of issues that I would like to address, which currently over 600 of them, I like to one by one to be able to address and give it to the public for free. So, what I like to deal with this is that I look at myself and say, well, I'm in the office, I look at patients every day, and I can only take care of their problems one at a time. And I said, well, wouldn't it be better if I can take care of more people at one time? So I came up with this idea about doctoring people over the internet. And so I said, well, why don't we do something that's good for everybody? And you can't lose by learning. So I decided, well, not only am I going to talk about health in general, but at the same time, to be able to share with the public that things I have learned through my patients. And by doing that, I'm imparting their experience to all those who are out there, whether in concert, understanding what bereavement they have or what difficulties they have with each illnesses, but to be able to appreciate the person's struggle in each situation. And as you know, illnesses are plentiful to go around. Even in flu season right now, we have thousands and thousands of viruses that can infect us, and they're not the same every time we have a cold. The shot can only take care of four things for this year of 2016. You can imagine with this bug or virus changing hats on us every year, just that alone is an annual event. So, Doctoring You is supposed to help those current who are having issues and also those who are helping them how to look into how to do and treat your loved ones the best you can through understanding of the issues at hand. But at the same time, with the aging population, I want to be able to teach the public, the younger generation to come, I want to contain my experience in this capsule by recording it so that the later generations people can learn from all of us and going forward. Not unlike a teacher who teaches things on in the classroom. Now that people are giving lectures now, including universities, to teach online. Now, once you have it online, this is for good and it's indefinite. So, as a physician, I want to do the same thing to capture it with my experience and to be able to deliver it for generations to come.
That sounds like a terrific endeavor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sue, for sharing your insights and commentary on balance for a healthy life. You can find more valuable content from Dr. Sue at doctoringyou.com. Join me next time on another episode of Emotions Matter.